Hi guys, I have stamped out all of the colors of the Sukaniko Momento Luxe pigment ink pads, and these are not new. They came out last year sometime, towards the end of the year. And there are 24 colors in the Momento Luxe line. And again, these are pigment inks, so they take a while to dry. I also stamped out all of the colors for the new Avery Elle stamp inks. Okay, and so what I have done is I punched out little shapes from the Stampin' Up! Punch I got recently. And on the card I have stamped Avery, or I have stamped out Create. So if it says Create, it's from Avery Elle. If it says Inspire, it is from Momento Luxe. And I've actually written the color on the actual punch and done a color comparison. And so what I tried to do was compare the closest colors together, and if I didn't feel there was an actual color that matched it, I just left it blank to the left or to the right. So, for example, with the pink, the Create is a Avery Elle color, and that's Pixie, but there isn't a comparable color in the Momento Luxe line. So you're not getting an overlap of ink pad colors because they don't match up. And I really don't think there is too much overlap here at all, because if you look at these two colors here, they're not the same tone of pink. This one is darker than this one, and this is raspberry. No, is that raspberry? Yeah, raspberry from the new line, Avery Elle, and then this is the Momento Luxe Rosebud. So they're not the same pink. So really, I think there should be a gap between each two, but I don't have enough desk space for that. The closest I've come is the reds. This is the Avery Elle Cherry, and this is the Momento Luxe Love Letter. But again, I can see, and I don't know if you can notice this. Let's see if I can focus better. To me, this is a slight bit darker, but if you really don't care, you could probably do with just one. I happen to have them both now, but to me, these are different shades of red, all three of these. And as you notice, the rhubarb stalk, there is no comparable Avery Elle color, so to me, I'd have a different shade for those reds. The yellows, again, to me, are not matching up here. This, to me, this Avery Elle Mimosa and the Dandelion are two different colors. And this cardstock is just the regular Georgia Pacific that you can buy at Walmart. It's pretty thick, and as you know, pigment inks don't soak into the paper. They sit on the top. I will tell you that this Avery Elle pigment ink dries faster. This Momento Luxe will be probably wet if I touched it now, or if I touched it 3 hours from now, it probably would still be wet. So if you're looking for a pigment ink that dries faster, try the Avery Elle, because I want to say after 45 minutes maybe, I put my hand across it and it was dry. It would not smudge. So that does dry faster. This takes a little while to dry. I usually heat set this. Here is a fizz. Here's the Avery Elle fizz color. There is no comparable orange in the Momento Luxe. Same with the Momento Luxe Morocco. That's more of a true orange to me, rather than this. So I don't know. You're not getting overlap there. With the greens, you have these two. They're pretty close, but I think this has more yellow in it. This Avery Elle green, and it's lemongrass, and this is pear tart. So I don't think they're the same either, even though they look like it perhaps. Here's the mint to be. This is the celery in Avery Elle. This is pistachio. So there's quite a few colors because there are 24 in the Momento Luxe line. These are all greens and they're all different colors, but there's no comparable color in the Avery Elle. These next two are Sea Glass and Aquamarine. Again, new colors that I will have in the pigment inks. And then in the blues, these are the closest that I could come to. This is the Avery Elle Sapphire, and then this is the Danube Blue. And I actually think the Danube Blue is brighter than the Avery Elle. So to me, these are not a match. This would be actually in the middle if I had to put them in color order. This would be in between these two colors. And I just dropped a card. So these colors here are all the blues as well from Momento Luxe, so you're not getting a comparable color in Avery Elle. This is the Orchid in the Avery Elle. This is more purples here. This is Sweet Plum and Lilac Posies. Two newer, two obviously not the same. And then there's one more purple here, which is the Sugar Plum. And there's also, in the Momento Luxe, something called Elderberry. And again, I don't think this is a match, and I'll tell you why. You can kind of see that this is a darker color. There's some gray tone to me in that color. So these are not the same, even though this has some purple in it. Okay, up at the top we have the Fog from Avery Elle. And then we have the Gray Flannel, Espresso Truffle, Peanut Butter, Toffee Crunch, and Rich Cocoa, and then there's a black in the Momento Luxe. So those are all missing. You don't get those in the Avery Elle line here. And they may come out with more since they're now doing the inks. The other thing is I stamped the white out. The top one is the Avery Elle. The bottom one is the Wedding Dress white. And these are done on black cardstock. I obviously prefer this one. It seems like it's a clearer stamped image than this, and it comes through better, but this might be good for the chalkboard type treatment if you're looking for something that's a little more muted. This is brighter to me, and I just prefer that. That would not probably be something I use with a chalkboard technique, but it's all your preference. So that's what the Avery Elle colors look like in comparison to the Momento Luxe. Now, I believe the Heidi Swap inks that I just purchased from Michaels are also pigment inked. And let me actually just put my hand over the camera and I will check. I think they are, though. And there are only 8 colors of those. It says archival dye. Okay, this is archival ink. So, anyway, it's a little bit different. So that is the color comparison, and I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry about that, guys. And I'll kind of come back a little bit. I'm sorry I'm hand holding this, but I just cannot get it all in the shot, and I'd have to move it all around. So there's all the colors except for the one that I dropped on the floor, and it was the aquamarine, I believe, that I dropped. So if you have any questions, leave a comment below. Talk to you soon. So bye. I got a comment from Enchanted Steph. She asked that I show how I store all of my inks. After I showed the haul from Avery Elle, the ink pad set of 15. Yeah, 15. So this is for anyone who is curious about how I store my stamp pads. I like to store them upside down. It's just the way I am. So these are all the StazOn inks colors. These are all of the colors that they have available. It's on a square turning rack, and on the other side, if I turn that around, you'll see the pastels. So that's the StazOn ink here, and you can even see I have the cleaners down at the bottom. And there's some metallic in there. Of course, they come with the ink pads and the re-inkers for the metallic and the pastels. I have not used the ink pads. I just put them on a dauber and use it that way, just so I don't waste the ink. So if I go over to the right here, these are all of my Stampin' Up! Ink pads that I have. I had found 2 boxes at the thrift store for a really great price, and then I just ordered some new ones. And this is the Recollections 9 cube set that you get at Michaels. And if you're wondering, how do I keep these straight because Stampin' Up! Ink pads are not flat on the bottom, what I have done is, and this will work with any ink pad storage cubby that doesn't fit the ink pads exactly. If you don't want them to go all the way to the back, because these cubbies are deeper than the actual ink pads. So I have just cut a piece of paper to the width that I would like it to be, so it doesn't push, so it, there's that gap in the back. This one is 2 inches. So if you have Stampin' Up! Ink pads, you cut it to 2 inches, and this is about this is about 24 inches, I think. And all I did was cut, or scored and folded this piece of paper, and if you stick it in the back, it'll stand up by itself. And I won't show you how to do that, but if you put it back there and you kind of spread it out, maybe I will show you, try to show you. You can see it back there, it stands up on its own. You can stick your ink pads in there. And now, if I push on them, they won't go back, see? Because that piece of paper holds it from doing that, and I just then run my finger along the sides. Look how straight they are. I don't like them all jumbled looking, so these are the Stampin' Up! Ink pads that I have so far. And then above them is the Heidi Swap. This is just the inset of, it usually has that grid for the markers. I took the grid out because I have too many markers anyway, and I can't put them in there, so I took it out and put it on top of that 9-cube thing. It stores the Heidi Swap ink pads, my Momento ink pads I use for my Copic coloring. That's why it's just the black and a brown. So I can stamp the images I'm going to color. And then this is the Versamark, and these two are metallic. And then some acrylic blocks. Over here is where the Pigment ink is. So over here is where the Pigment ink is, and these are all of the Sukaniko ink pads that they have in the colors available. There's 24 here. Again, this is a Recollections cube, and what keeps the ink pads from moving back is I have put some milk glass back there that I have a couple of pieces that are smaller, and they're cups. But I put them back there because I don't need what's in them to be out all the time. So that's what I put back there for now. I could have used that piece of paper and done the same technique so those ink pads wouldn't get pushed all the way to the back, because obviously they're not as deep as the actual cubby is. So that's where my Pigment ink pads are for Sukaniko. These are the ones that I just got from Avery, Elle. There's 15 of those. There's 6 per stack here, so you can see that's 24, and then because there's 15, I've kind of stacked them by color. So, and then down here, what you see is some American Crafts ink pads. I don't like them. I probably should just get rid of them because I got them some time ago and I have never really used them. And I just don't like the way they stamp. Okay. I have some odds and ends stamp pads on this side. These are Archival Brilliance ink pads in the larger size, and then there's a Resist one, and then my chalk ink from Prima, these little edgers. Some of them aren't even open. I have all the colors here. It's just sitting in a milk glass bowl, so if I want a specific chalk ink, I just go digging through that bowl. So I'm not going to turn around now because I have more ink. Yes, I do. And I'll cover this so I don't make you dizzy. Okay, so this is what I'm using to store my distress ink. And what is this? It's actually 3 drawers. 1, 2, 3. I taped them together with some duct tape, and then I put washi tape around it. This came out of my craft armoire that I purchased at Tuesday morning last week. And I realized I had to pull them out based on how I'm storing stuff in my armoire. I didn't need those drawers in there, so I pulled them out and I said, okay, what am I going to do with these? Instead of storing embellishments in them, I'm storing my ink pads because they fit perfectly. So if you look, these are all of the inks for the Tim Holtz Distress line. And I still have 2 leftover cubbies. And these are all for stamps for Happy Mail, some acrylic blocks that they're not permanently stuck on there. They're just always on there. And then some extra acrylic blocks and another Happy Mail stamp. So that's where my distress inks are. And these cubbies fit exactly the ink pad size. So that's where those are. And they're just sitting on top of a shelf that are on my craft desk. Okay, and one more place where I have inks. Okay, so I lied, there's two. This thing is just another storage bin. You can find this, I think, at Joann's. And this is where all my dewdrops are. So you can see that some of them are doubled up because you can fit two deep. And I don't know if I have them all, actually. I just know that this is where all the dewdrops are. So if I need them to look in here, and I store it like that. That's why there's a label on the bottom. And then this right here is just a Recollections plastic container. I had quite a few of them. And I emptied one out of my tools and stuck all of the Hero Arts ink pads in it. The Hero Arts ink pads in all the different colors. So there's the shadow inks, the midtones, well, is that right? The pastels, the midtones, and the neons. And they're all in here, and there is a slot for 1, 2, 3, 4 more to fit inside there. And I just store it like this upright. And all of the ink pads are upside down. I still need to go through, not all of the ink pads are even open yet. I still need to go through and put the colors on the sides. You can see I did the neon ones already. They're all together. And then I did some of the midtones. So that's how I store the Hero Arts ink pads. If you needed to know, Steph, how many actually fit in there, the whole range fits in there. And you can store it upright, so that takes a little less room than others. And you can just pull the whole thing out when you're looking for something and it's clear so you can see through it. And you can, I just use these little labels that are about 1 inch long. You use them for mailing. They're sticky, and I cut them. And so I just take one and stick it in the ink and then stick it on the outside. And actually they're on both sides. They're on this side, and they're also on the short side. So if I ever decide to change the way that I store them and turn them the other way, you can see it from both sides. So that's the Hero Arts ink pads. And then I just found this acrylic shelf unit at the thrift store, and I haven't even showed that haul yet. And I may use this for storing ink. It was only $2.98. I didn't want to buy an expensive, stamp pad storage unit, because I'd rather spend my money on the actual stamp pads instead of the storage unit, because storage units are probably like $50 or $60. So that's another thing that if I get lucky at the thrift store, sometimes I'll try and find, some storage unit that can hold a lot of ink. But that's how I do it, and I hope that helps Steph or anybody else who's watching. And thanks for watching. Bye.